All right. Now, here's the most important point, and I think this is the reason why we're here today. All the indicators can be Googled and can be read. Remember that. So there's no need for you to be on this call. What I came to do today is to help you connect the dots so that you finally can think for yourself on the subject. Indicators are derived and are not causes. So, for instance, geography is important in macroeconomics. We have global, regional, and national macroeconomic drivers and indicators. So if US raises its interest rates, it affects us in Nigeria. So let me quickly answer that. What are interest rates? Interest rates are set by the central bank. Interest rates is the rate at which companies can borrow. All right? Or sorry, it's the rate at which banks set for borrowing. So if they put a benchmark of, let's say, 10%, that is the benchmark. So banks now say, we'll lend you at, for instance, 15%, because the benchmark is 10%. So when you come to collect, the cost of borrowing is added to that interest rate. I'm just giving you very basic definitions. Now, why is that important? If the interest rates are high, right, you know what's going to happen. And it also affects the cost of placing money. People that would have typically brought money to Nigeria, because there's what we call portfolio investors. Portfolio investors come and invest in our stock market. So they don't have any operation. They just come, buy X unit of this shares, X unit of that shares, and they clean out. So what happens is, or they trade. So what happens is, if the interest rates are raised in their country, means they can get better returns for their money. You know what they do? They run back to their country and go and put their money there. I'm talking about fund managers now, as it were. But there's another scenario where if the interest rates are raised, we that borrowed money from developed countries, please follow me here. You know what happens? The rate now affects us. So for those of you who are familiar with taking loans from banks, they will tell you that these rates are not fixed. Something can happen. So all of us will just wake up one morning and tell you, please, your interest rate that you're servicing every month has now increased. Therefore, your debt will cost you more. Now, when your debt is almost 10 trillion, and depending on where you got that debt from, you can imagine the implication if you don't service your debt. So that's how interest rates affect us. If they increase the interest rates in the West, right, in those financial markets, when we borrow money from them, our cost of servicing that debt would increase. Why do they increase interest rates? They increase interest rates when their inflation is high. Okay, now I know this is when you start losing me. Please do not lose me. If you lose me here, then there's no point, right? And that's why I came here, to make it simple. I will come back and connect the dots. So please follow me, all right? Interest rates is set by the central bank and is set to regulate money supply, because banks are the ones that are custodians of that money, all right? Number two, and I'll come back to that point. Please follow me. Indicators are symptoms and are not the causes or the drivers, which I've already indicated. So what do I mean? Russia's invasion of Ukraine is one of the major reasons, if not the most important reason, for the rise in energy and food prices. So all the craze in our supermarkets and the markets that things are 3 times now is because of that war. Why? Because they broke global supply chain. How? They make up the most of grain. They make up most of the grains that we are not consuming. So wheat, what if you check Goldman on wheat, baby food, and so on and so forth? That ingredient is grain, is wheat. Wheat is used for so many things. I think wheat is also used to make saccharin or sugar. Sorry, to make one of these sweeteners. It depends. Even though there are other alternatives in Nigeria that we can explore, like sorghum, I think, or thereabout. I can't really remember, but I don't want to get into that. Even cassava in some cases. But here is the point: wheat. They are the 2 biggest. They control the market in the world, and Africans, because we import a lot of that, it now went ahead to affect us. Also, COVID. We're just recovering from COVID, where because of what happened, global shipping lines and transatlantic, all of that was slowed down. Prices went up. All of that, right? That problem. We all are just recovering from it. Then Russia now invaded Ukraine to compound the problem for us. So that what is called broke the global supply chain. So things now became more expensive because Russia put a blockade on Ukraine's grains. So Ukraine could not exit. So Turkey came and negotiated and brokered. I think Turkey, one of the other countries, said, okay, you know what, guys, you guys are fighting, and the brokering is very important. If there's someone in this call and your family people are fighting, brokering helps. So they brokered the deal, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. Well, it worked out briefly. Then Russia now reneged on it. I don't know where Russia is on it. I haven't listened to news in a while, but that was the last thing that happened. Now, the third one is, even though it creates opportunities for our own farmers, because Nigeria can produce wheat, it's just that we don't produce wheat at the economies of scale. We don't produce wheat at the economies that will make sense and will enable us to compete. So we'll produce our own wheat and it'll be too expensive to export. Now you're seeing the thing is coming together. Because their own wheat, over time, they've known how to maximize yield, where you can predict that for every hectare, I can get XYZ returns per hectare, right? But in this case, when you're producing at a lower output, you cannot compete with the developed clouds, right? The third one is all the causes or drivers are in the news. Now, I know a lot of us have been told not to listen to the news because it's depressing. Unfortunately, the news may be depressing, but it is the only way you will know what will trigger the next global issue, right? Or will create opportunity for your business, employer, or even pose a threat. So if you know, if all the time that Russia was preparing to invade Ukraine, if you had listened to the analysts, you would have heard the implication of food prices. So of course, there's something you could have done because it's a global issue, but at least that will help you understand what to do. And for a praying nation, that will be a better way to pray. At least you're more accurate of what you need to do. All right. So these are important facts. And this is the main reason why I'm spending time on this presentation, because all the other macroeconomic indicators that I will introduce to you, you can read them and understand it. But the problem is, if you don't know the purpose, which is what I'm explaining, and the drivers, then it doesn't make any sense. And this is designed for simple explanation. It's not to impress business analysts. If you're a business analyst here, this presentation will not be very useful to you, because you're supposed to be more advanced than this, all right? This is for ordinary people who just need to know things better. All right, so the indicators are a lot, because we're about to get into them, and can be very confusing. So the hack is to be diligent reader and curious when you hear macroeconomic terms. My job is to raise your curiosity. Number 3, remember the subject and indicators were invented by humans like you and I, so you too can understand it. I think that's supposed to help someone see that, you know what, if a human being created these terms, I think I can understand it. So don't feel like they are heavenly languages, right? Or from hell. Now, the last one is you can create your own indicators or your own indicator, as long as you have the logic and the data to back it. However, we have the non-negotiables for global uniformity.